Welcome back, and in today's lesson we will take a look at percentages. Right, so to properly prepare you for your NBT QL part of your AQL test, you would also need to understand percentages, so converting between fractions, decimals, and percentages. So firstly, let's define this. So technically x% is essentially x over 100. So when you see, like for example, 75%, percent just essentially means that it is out of 100, or 100 is its denominator. So here, if you look at an example here, if we were to convert 25% into a fraction, right, so that's simple. So first you would first have to rewrite the percentage as out of 100 as a fraction. So that would be 25 over 100, and then to simplify it, we would just divide the top and the bottom by a common factor. So that would be dividing the top by 25, dividing by bottom by 25, and then we are left with 1 over 4. All right, so simple enough. And then second part, where it would be the other way around, so essentially converting a decimal to a percentage, converting 0.3 to a percentage. And in doing so, like normal, firstly you would have to rewrite this decimal as a fraction. So it'll be 3 over 10. And then remember, we need to get it, or to make the denominator of 100, right? Because the percentage basically means the denominator is 100. So to do that, we'd have to times the bottom by 10 times the top by 10. And we're left with 30 over 100, which is essentially 30%. Another thing for this, where you would have to work out, is calculating percentage of an amount, right? So to calculate, for example, x% of an amount, right? So this in this instance, we then would be able to work out. So here, let's just say 25%. Let's say 20%, a little bit easier, of 75 rand. And then so this would essentially be times, because of you got of there, so this would be 20 over 100, convert that into a decimal, times 75. So likewise, this would be your multiplication of your fraction, so top times top, bottom times bottom. So 20 times 75, so that would essentially be 75 times 2, that would be 150, so that would be 1500 divided by 100, and which gives you 15. Okay, and then another part of this which is important to remember is finding what percentage a part of a whole is. So meaning that is that, for example, if they give you a certain number of learners who, say for example 21 learners take physics, or take a certain subject out of the entire school, so entire grade at least. So take physics, physical science out of 420 learners, for example. And learners, and then your job is to work out the percentage. So essentially that would just be 21 divided by 420 times by 100, right? And then technically you just put a percent at the end, so just to be technical there. But then again, it's just numerator times numerator, so it'll be 21 times 100. So 2100 divided by 420, and essentially that gives you 2100. Take that out, take that 0 out, 210 divided by 42, that just gives you 5. So that will be 5%. Right. So that is regards to that. Next concept in terms of percentage is percentage increase or decrease. Right. So let's have a look at this one here. So calculating the percentage increase or decrease. So to be able to do that, and this would essentially depend on the actual values. So if it is positive, then it would be a percentage increase. If it is negative, then it would be percentage decrease. So based on this, the percentage increase or decrease, that specific formula is the new amount minus the original amount and divided by the original amount times by 100, and that would essentially be a percent. So for example, if the number of learners taking maths dropped from 500 to 470, the original amount would be 500. So here, if you put that example here in, so remember 470, so the number of learners taking maths is 500 to 470. So just made up example. The new amount now is 470. So here this would be 470 minus 500 divided by 500 times 100. And essentially that would give us a negative answer. So because it is a negative answer, that tells us that it's a percentage decrease. Right. And another thing when in terms of percentage increase or decrease, they can ask you to increase an amount by a certain percentage, or they can ask you to decrease an amount by a certain percentage. So in doing so, how you would actually do that. So let's actually just make a note of this. So this is instruction. So where you'd have to increase or decrease by a. So to continue increasing or decreasing by a specific percentage. So if we were to increase the amount, then it would just be the amount plus the X% of the amount. And so that would be essentially times in the amount. So technically amount plus X over 100 times that amount. Technically that's what that would look like, a percentage to increase a specific percentage, and to decrease a specific percentage, that would be negative. So this would be amount minus X% of amount. So again, amount minus X over 100 times the amount. So I think best way to do this is, let's actually have a look at an example. Just block this up. Okay, so first example here is that the price of milk was 11 rand, but is increased by 5%. So what is the new price of milk? So if you were to just essentially do this kind of long way, and another we could actually add to this formula here is, we can say this would be 1 plus X over 100 times the amount, and this one would be 1 minus X over 100 times the amount. So technically what this would be, since this is a percentage increase, this would be 1 plus 5 over 100 times that 11 rand, and that would give us 11.55. so technically this specific part is 1.05. so if a price of bread was increased by, say, 20%, that would look like 1.20. So it's always 1 plus that decimal of that percentage. And the last part of percentages that you would need to know is the percentage back to whole. So what that means is percentage back to whole. So if, for example, if X% is equal to an amount, then 1% is equals to an amount divided by X. So 100% is equals to the amount over X times 100. So for example, if we look at an example here, let's say 30% of my class is boys, and there are 12 boys in my class. So let's say there are 12 boys. How big is the class? So here you can say, okay, 30% is equals to that amount. So this is X% is equals to the amount. 30% is equals to 12 learners. So 1%, so technically we're dividing both sides by 30. So this would be 12 over 30. So technically 100%. So what we would do is we would times both sides by 100. So it's kind of like using your ratios here. So here times this by 100 times this by 100. And so 100% of the class is 12 over 30 times 100, which is 40 learners. So technically there are 40 learners. So it's technically applying this formula, which if we want, we can actually simplify kind of like a diagram here next to this. So X% equals to an amount. So technically we'll divide it by X now, or divided by X, and that is 1% is equals to amount divided by X, right? So again, this is also divided by X, and then we multiply it by 100 on both sides. That is percentages, and in the next lesson we would look at ratio and proportion.